Hello and welcome to Rob's Coffee Journeys. Today on the show, a very special episode, double rarity, a new rare origin and a new rare species of coffee. Very excited. Let's get into it. In this bag is some of the world's rarest coffee, or at least it used to be in this bag. I've since ground it, and currently it is finishing up brewing in the Chemex behind me. But you are looking at coffee from South Africa, and coffee that is not Arabica coffee. It's not Robusta coffee. It's not even Liberica or Eugenioides, which are also other species of coffee that I've had before. This is a completely new species of coffee, the fifth one now that I've been able to try. It is Coffea Racemosa. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. Might be wrong though. It is one of the rarest coffees in the world that anyone is aware of. It grows only in a very small range in southeastern South Africa, along the border with Mozambique, along the Indian Ocean coast, and it is a naturally not quite decaffeinated but very low in caffeine variety. Apparently just has a fraction of the amount of caffeine you find in Arabica coffee. Unfortunately, that does mean I'm probably going to have to make a pot of regular coffee after I try this, but that's all right. Oh no, I have to have more coffee. Whatever shall I do? Anyhow, this is from Paradise Roasters out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, part of their rare coffee subscription, which I talked about in the last episode. This was the second of their July offerings, and this one is very rare. They only sent 2 ounces of it, and they did not even offer it to non-subscribers, which usually they have some left over to do that. This one, clearly they did not have very much of it. 2 ounces, just enough basically to brew 1 pot of Chemex, the way I tend to brew it. So that'll be a nice $10 cup of coffee, and it doesn't even have caffeine in it, but that's all right. This one is definitely about the experience and the rarity, and I am very curious to see how this is going to turn out. So the coffee is going to be about done brewing behind me. I'm going to pour some out, we'll let it cool, I'll talk maybe a little bit more about it, and then we'll see how it is. One particularly unusual thing about Coffea Racemosa is where it grows. So it grows in, like I said, southeastern South Africa, along the Mozambican border, into Mozambique. More importantly, it grows south of the Tropic of Capricorn. With rare exceptions, coffee grows in the tropical zones, between the Tropic of Cancer in the north, Tropic of Capricorn in the south. Either side of the equator, these are the areas where coffee grows, certainly coffee Arabica. Now you can find coffee outside of these zones, but it's pretty rare. I have had some coffee from outside of these zones before. I had some coffee grown in Nepal earlier this year. I've had some coffee grown in California. But in all events, it's pretty rare to find it outside these zones, and the conditions need to be pretty right to be able to grow coffee outside of those zones. So very interesting that this is from south of the Tropic of Capricorn. Also the first time I've had coffee from south of the tropics. Before I've just had it from north of the tropics. So that'll be intriguing. Now it's not too far out of the zone. South Africa does extend north of the Tropic of Capricorn in the far northeast part of the country, but this is a good deal south of that. So let's talk about the tasting notes real quick. So this is a light roast. So again, from the Elephant Coast Estate, great name. Tasting notes here, roasted nuts, fig, and black pepper. Very different tasting notes from the ones that I've seen on other non-Arabica, non-Robusta species. I've had Liberica, I've had Eugenioides. These both had kind of a sort of overly sweet, kind of cloying. There were notes of maybe some spice, but also just this sort of fruitiness and sweetness. This really seems quite different than that. I mean, fig is a fruit, but a much kind of deeper fruit as far as the flavor goes. Black pepper, certainly not the first flavor you think of when you think of coffee. Now, I smelled the beans after I ground them, and they definitely had kind of a peppery and sort of earthy note on that aroma, but the way that beans smell, even after being ground, is frequently not what the coffee actually tastes like. So very curious to see how this actually hits the palate. And also I'm expecting that this is not going to be as acidic or bitter as coffee frequently is because of the lower caffeine. Caffeine has kind of that acidic, bitter quality to it. But I don't know actually what it's going to taste like, so let's find out. Interesting aroma, unusual relative to Arabica, not surprising. It's a little bit like a cooked grain, like a rice almost. There's something else in there I can't quite put my finger on. Let's see if that comes out in the actual flavor. Wow. That is quite different. Yeah, one thing that you definitely do not get in this is that immediate hit of acid that usually comes with an Arabica. And I think in large part that's going to be because there's so little caffeine in this. You just don't have that acidity to the same degree. So it's a very different experience when it first crosses the tongue, because you just don't get that little jolt. So yeah, I'm probably gonna have to make more coffee later. It's interesting, there is still there's an underlying bitterness to the overall flavor profile, even though you don't have some of the same compounds. So there must be kind of a basic coffee bitterness, even when you don't have the same levels of caffeine, the same kinds of, presumably you don't have the same kinds of flavonoids, but there is still a little bit of that bitterness underneath. I can definitely see what they mean by roasted nuts. There's definitely kind of that sort of depth of flavor which you get from, you know, when like a walnut maybe, or an almond kind of get a little bit of that reaction from being roasted, the Maillard reaction, or almost even a little bit of the char, if you were to kind of toast it maybe in a pan. Yeah, because this is a light roast, so you're not going to get a lot of roasted flavor notes from the actual process, which means that to the extent that I'm getting roasted notes, and they're definitely there, that's mostly going to be from the beans themselves, just the way that they taste, when some heat is applied, but just not all of the heat, you know. I don't really know if these beans could have taken any more than a light roast. I mean, you saw how small they were. They probably would have just turned into absolute charcoal pretty fast. Oh yeah, no, there's all that pepper, yeah. So yeah, black pepper, definitely a good note. It's not hot, obviously, or spicy like actual black pepper is, but there is a flavor that black pepper has. Take a whiff out of like a jar of unground peppercorns, maybe. That's kind of what it makes me think of. I don't know that I get a lot of fig, but then again, I don't know that I have a lot of sense for what fig is supposed to taste like, outside of Newton form, which is probably, a bit more sweetened than just an off the vine, or clearly I don't know how figs grow, probably off the tree, bush, wherever figs grow. Probably not I don't think figs grow on vines. I don't know why I said vines. I mean, the thing is, you're really missing that brightness. It's a very, it's not that there aren't flavors in it, but it is kind of a flat cup because you don't have that brightness and acidity that the caffeine really contributes to. There's nothing. I feel like there's clearly a little bit of caffeine in here, but it's a pretty small amount, so you don't get that real pop. That said, there are some interesting flavors here, and there are flavors. I mean, I've had cups of Arabica that I found the flavors kind of indistinct. This, if nothing else, has a very distinct taste to it. Really, definitely different from any other coffee that I've had. And it's an interesting option too. I mean, if you are somebody who prefers decaf coffee, or you can't drink coffee anymore because you can't have caffeine, or if you want to have coffee later in the day because you just like the taste of coffee, this is a decent cup of coffee as far as what it tastes like. It does taste generally like coffee. It is recognizable as a coffee beverage, but it doesn't have caffeine, and it hasn't gone through any sort of odd process to decaffeinate the beans. It just comes that way. So that is a pretty interesting option for somebody who prefers or needs or wants decaf coffee, to be able to try it this way. Now, of course, do you want it so bad that you're willing to pay out the nose for an extremely rare different species that is only grown in a tiny little area in southern Africa? Probably not. But if you did want to do that, I think flavor-wise you could do a lot worse. It does taste pretty decent. It is interesting and different from most coffees, but it's definitely still coffee. So that's it for this episode of Rob's Coffee Journeys. Coffea Racemosa from South Africa. Very cool, very different, and not too bad. But I am probably going to have to go and make another cup of coffee here in a minute. So I'll leave you there. But if you enjoy this program, feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment. If you're interested in Paradise Roaster's rare coffee subscription, I will put a referral code in the description to this video. You can, I think, get free shipping on your first purchase if you use that code. This is not a paid endorsement or anything, it's just a company that I use. So feel free to use that if you want. If not, no skin off my back either. But that's it for this episode, and looking forward to the next rare coffee that's gonna come from Paradise. And when it does, I will probably try it on this very program. But until then, see you next time, and go enjoy some coffee.